This BizNews briefing is brought to you by Investec Business Banking. Make the move from business as usual to Investec Business Banking. It's Thursday, the 29th of May. I'm Alec Hogg. This is your BizNews briefing. Well, we're amongst those who've been questioning why, if the GDP per capita, in other words, the economy for each one of us, each one of our share of the economy, has been falling for 17 consecutive years, not my view, that's the World Bank's view, then isn't it time to do something different? Have a look at something that maybe worked differently? And many are saying that the added tax that is put onto the economy, 150 billion rands worth, through legal scooping off on BEE schemes, is wrong. Indeed, the public also believes so, but not President Ramaphosa. Yesterday in Parliament, in answering a question from the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, Dr. Corne Mulder, Cyril Ramaphosa doubled down on BEE. Let's have a listen.
In our country, it was just the few privileged, and may I continue to say white people, who continue to own the means of production, who continue to own the productive economy of our country. Now,
we took them to America.
Now, this I find very worrying. I find it very worrying that we continue to have this notion that BEE is the one that's holding our economy back. It is the partial and exclusive ownership of the means of production in our country that is holding this economy from growing. So, what we seek to do, as set out in the Equality Clause in our Constitution, to redress the imbalances of the past. If we accept that the ownership of our economy is imbalanced, the clause on equality in our Constitution seeks to undo that, to redress that. So therefore, ownership of our economy should be broadened. And I can tell you, Dr. Mulder, there's nothing that gives our people joy, particularly black people, as they go around and they find that this production facility is owned by a black person. It warms one's heart. It makes us feel so good, because we've come from a horrible past when that was not allowed by law, where people were arrested. If you wanted to set up an economic facility in town, you were put to jail. But today, we are saying all that must be put behind us. We must allow more and more people to play an important role in the economy of our country. And this is what baffles me by those who are opposed to black economic empowerment. I say, what do you want to see happening? Do you want to see black people continuing to play the role of laborers, drawers of water, hewers of wood, and consumers only? Why can't black people be made to own productive aspects of our economy? Why can't they be rich as well? That is what needs to happen. Because it is when they get to that level. Dr. Mulder, you look at the Afrikaners, the history of your people. If you look at the history of your people, they were held back by the English. And with later days, they were enabled. They became more and more economically empowered. And they became economically empowered due to the policies of apartheid, the laws that were put in place, the sweet deals that they were given, and they started getting more and more into being serious economic players. Why can't the same be done for black people? Why?
Joel Pollak provides some insights on the Oval Office smackdown This is from the American side. We spoke yesterday so that I could get a little bit of a feeling of what's going on. What do the Americans think about the meeting that was held last week? We in South Africa are told it was a great success. How do they think about it? Joel is extremely well tapped in to the inner circle in Washington.
If you really want to make progress on trade and you want to make progress on foreign relations and so forth, you have to offer more. South Africa began the meeting well. I actually thought Ramaphosa began well by praising Trump's efforts to negotiate peace and talking about how Zelensky had come to South Africa and so forth. But what did South Africa offer? Did South Africa offer to host the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority I don't know if either side would accept the invitation, but did South Africa offer something like that? Did South Africa offer to join international pressure on Iran on stopping it from achieving a nuclear weapon? I mean, what did he actually offer? He offered nothing. So there's going to have to be a concerted effort by people in the private sector, I think, on both sides, to say what actually are the steps that South Africa must take to bring the American administration around once again to developing a stronger relationship that can then lead to economic growth and flourishing in South Africa and to better trade relations between the two countries.
Sure, that's quite a lot to digest, Joel, but I guess if I were to summarize, it was an opportunity lost. There certainly has been some pretty negative information that was disclosed there to the rest of the world. When you've got your own people saying we're a terribly violent society where people get raped and murdered, it isn't a good message to be sending out. But if I hear you correctly, South Africa is not that important to the United States. And as a result, come the deadline for tariffs, we might be stuck with the 30% that has been proposed. Is that a correct reading?
I think so. I think it's more important to the Trump administration right now to have achieved a public victory over a South African government that was intransigent, and thereby to set an example to other countries not to follow South Africa's lead, than it is to have repaired the relationship with South Africa. So I think South Africa is actually in a very bad place after that visit and needs to find an answer quickly. If it wants to avoid the tariffs, if it wants to repair relations, perhaps even make a pitch for restoring some of the aid that was lost, I think South Africa needs to offer some compromises and quickly. That would be my approach. The White House hasn't said that. I think the White House is quite satisfied with how things turned out. And to the extent that the South African media are spinning the meeting as a success for South Africa, that's going to prevent the kind of change that would actually improve relations between the two countries. South Africa should not rest on its so-called laurels. I mean, it was not a successful meeting. And, the Trump base, Trump's MAGA supporters and so forth, are enjoying the video clips of that meeting, which tells you that the American side is, in a sense, relishing a victory. It's not concerned with what it can do to fix the relationship. They believe that South Africa came for a fight and got one, and came out the losing end. So if I were the South African government or advising the South African government, I would say that the Starlink proposal is a step in the right direction. There need to be other such proposals, and they need to receive the full endorsement of the South African government. Also, crucially, stop avoiding the issue of Julius Malema. The fact that Ramaphosa came out and defended Malema's rhetoric by saying it's just a liberation chant and deferred to the courts. The courts in South Africa have until now enjoyed a good international reputation, but the decisions on the Kill the Boer chant are indefensible. And now attention is being drawn to the fact that Julius Malema actually sits on the Judicial Services Commission. So he's choosing the judges. And that is now understood as perhaps having played a role in affecting the outcome of the legal cases against him. But even if you don't want to arrest him, as Trump said South Africa should, there needs to be a much firmer stance against that kind of rhetoric, and not simply defending it as a sort of liberation chant. I mean, again, Ramaphosa has now equated himself to Malema on this issue by defending the indefensible. And if you don't want to have people believe there's a white genocide, then don't describe a chant that is obviously violent in its imagery as some kind of freedom song. It's offensive and it sends a terrible signal to the rest of the world. So that's not a difficult compromise to make. I mean, what are you going to do? Make Malema angrier at the government than he already is? Just stand up to him. But somehow that's beyond what Ramaphosa is willing to do.
So where to from here? Well, my colleague Chris Steyn had a fabulous interview yesterday with Professor William Gumede from Wits University, and he gave us some insights or some thoughts of what needs to happen on the political side for the country to get past the impasse that we're in, where South Africa hasn't got many friends. We might be picking up 30% tariffs from our biggest trading partner, and we have the highest unemployment in the world and some pretty crazy economic policies, despite what those who crafted them and supported them and continue to support them believe. Here's what the Prof offered.
Who do you think, if you're willing to answer this question, would be the best next president of the country?
What we now need in the country is we need a new generation of leaders. Maybe that's our moment, maybe our sort of India Singh moment in our country. Indian Congress Party Singh moment, where we need maybe a non-politician to run the country. Because, I mean, our problem as a country is we need a little bit more boringness in our country. We need to calm down as a country, as a society. And our problem is right now is the people who are walking, the political leaders who are walking the limelight, who are prominent, who are those who are the loudest, those who are the most violent, those who are the most attacking other communities, causing the most divisions. What we now need to do is softer leaders, more embracing, more unifying leaders. And it may not, if one look at our politics now, it may not necessarily come actually from our current political leaders. We may have to look outwards and try to get maybe a sort of a Singh type of leader out of our country, and maybe the ANC can get that kind of maturity to bring in an outsider. We need at least sort of a bridging period, a 5-year period in South Africa's history, for the country to calm down, for the country, to be much more pragmatic, and for us to be more inclusive, and to get the populace to the sidelines. The people who think that only one color can run the country, or only one political faction and one ideology can run the country. We need to get them out of the limelight, out of the center of our politics, and create a sort of a new center in our politics. I mean, that's very important for me. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me what I am doing since the multi-party charter. I said I'm outside to try to get all of these opposition parties, with a constitutional-based opposition parties, to cooperate, and to sort of try to help along as a civil society person, as an academic person, to sort of nudge people and the politicians to begin to realign our politics to a much more reason-based, common sense-based center, centrist, because that's where our politics should be. And so we stay away from the far left and the populism and so on, because populism in Africa, since the first African country became independent, Liberia, almost 200 years ago, all populism have failed in Africa. All populism and all left populisms have failed. So what we need to do is get away from populism and get more dignified leaders. Maybe perhaps if also women leaders may actually be more important for our country now. I think, why would I say that? Maybe we need less of the hard people, so a lot of our leaders, right, our political leaders, many of our black political leaders particularly, these are hard individuals, ruthless individuals, self-interested individuals, people who don't care about, inciting violence and dividing the country, blaming other communities. They will walk over the bodies of black and white South Africans to be in power. We need to get different types of people who are more dignified, people, maybe leaders who look at common interests of all South Africans, not factional interests or ideological interests or party interests. And I think that's important. And for us as a country, how do we, between now and the next national elections, try to elevate people like that to the top of South Africa's political leadership?
Interesting point to this. If you read the opinion surveys, you will see that what Prof. Gumede is saying is something that is mirroring the belief of the vast majority of South Africans. We really just want to live in peace, grow our economy, give our kids and grandkids an opportunity to stay here indefinitely, get jobs, and for all of us to have a participate in that. It's not rocket science, and we haven't been doing it right. So more power to your voice, Prof. Gumede, and come on, younger generation, you guys have got it. Start taking the lead in what this country truly needs. See, on my soapbox, not difficult to get there. Hey, well, moving on to the international front now, and Donald Trump got a little bit of what we would call a clap here in South Africa from the US Trade Court, which has decided to roll back the Trump tariffs. Bloomberg's Bill Ferries reports with his colleague this morning.
The US Trade Court ruling that most of Donald Trump's global tariffs are illegal, agreeing that he wrongfully invoked emergency laws to justify the levies. Let's get more from Bloomberg senior editor Bill Ferries. Good morning, Bill. How far-reaching is this order by the Trade Court? How much legal back and forth can we expect in the coming days? Because it's relief in markets right now, but surely there's only going to be more uncertainty from all of the legal back and forth.
Well, I think you nailed it there earlier when you said it is a body blow to President Trump's efforts to impose a lot of these tariffs kind of across the board. What we heard from this trade court and from the plaintiffs who brought it, which included both Democratic-led states, but also a conservative legal center and small business owners, their argument was, listen, fentanyl trafficking might be a problem, trade deficits might be a problem, but they are not a national emergency that allows the administration to slap across-the-board tariffs on countries, including that 10% kind of baseline tariff we've seen. So we know that the Justice Department has already indicated that it plans to file an appeal. That appeal process will play out in the coming days, presumably. This could end up at the Supreme Court. We don't know how that will, eventually end. I think what you can be clear about is we're seeing a positive market reaction today. I think it means there's just going to be a lot of turmoil in the days ahead as this sorts itself out, as the various court levels weigh in, and ultimately as we probably get a Supreme Court decision on whether the president actually has these powers.
Well, Bill, this is perhaps just the recent biggest legal setback for President Trump, but he was also frustrated at what Wall Street's calling the taco trade, the Trump always chickens out trade. Just talk us about his reaction to that.
Yeah, he was asked about this so-called taco trade. I mean, another way we might talk about it is just buy the dip, right? And the idea is that when Trump announces these really elevated tariffs or trade measures against other countries and the market reacts and crashes a bit, that if you go in, you're eventually going to benefit because President Trump almost inevitably lowers the tariff level or reels in some of those things. President Trump very frustrated when he was asked about that taco trade. saying it was a very nasty question, criticizing fake news. But it is something, when you look at the most recent 50% tariff threat against the EU that I think took place on Friday, by Monday in the U.S. or Tuesday in the U.S., that was already dialed back or at least postponed. So there is some feeling that that there's a lot of this volatility can be a chance for market actors to jump in on the price swings very quickly.
Oh, Donald Trump. For the news industry, he's the gift that keeps on giving. Well, here's the man himself. Certainly doesn't feel the setbacks terribly strongly, explaining why he believes that Harvard University should be cutting back its foreign student allocation from the current 31% to 15%.
Harvard has to show us their lists. They have foreign students. About 31% of their students are foreign-based, almost 31%. We want to know where those students come. Are they troublemakers? What countries do they come? And we're not going to, if somebody is coming from a certain country and they're 100% fine, which I hope most of them are, but many of them won't be, you're going to see some very radical people. They're taking people from areas of the world that are very radicalized, and we don't want them making trouble in our country. So I saw yesterday that in the middle of the UK, there was a nice young man. He wants to go back to school at Harvard, and he looked good to me, but I want to check his past. But we want to be able to see why, these countries aren't helping us. They're not investing in Harvard and all of we are. So why would 31%, why would a number so big? I think, number one, I think they should have a cap of maybe around 15%, not 31%. We have people who want to go to Harvard and other schools. They can't get in because we have foreign students there. But I want to make sure that the foreign students are people that can love our country. We don't want to see shopping centers exploding. We don't want to see the kind of riots that you had. And I'll tell you what, many of those students didn't go anywhere. Many of those students were troublemakers caused by the radical left lunatics in this country.
At Sun Exchange, we make going solar simple, profitable, and completely risk-free. Join over 100 satisfied South African customers already enjoying the benefits of risk-free solar. Start saving today. Visit sunexchange.com and join the solar revolution.
Donald Trump. Well, the idea of enforcing his will or the will of the Trump administration onto universities has hit quite a lot of the headlines, not even including a question for the chief executive of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, who is himself an immigrant and whose company goes into those universities and hires a lot of the foreign students who are trained in the United States. He was talking about his financial results yesterday. The quarterlies were excellent. Nvidia, once again, shot the lights out. And it also jumped $8 a share in the after-hours trade to $142 a share. So getting back to an all-time record. He was interviewed this morning by Ed Ludlow from Bloomberg.
Obviously, I don't know all of his ideas, but let me tell you about two that are incredible. The first one is utterly visionary. The idea of tariffs being a pillar of a bold vision to reindustrialize, to onshore manufacturing, and motivate the world to invest in the United States, and is just an incredible vision. I think this is going to be a transformative idea for the next century for us. We're all in on the idea. We're setting up plants and encouraging our partners from around the world to invest in the United States, and we have a lot of stuff going on, and so I'm very excited about that. The second major idea is to rescind the AI diffusion rule, recognizing that this isn't about limiting American technology, but this is about accelerating American stacks around the world to make sure that before it's too late, that the world builds on American stacks during this extraordinary time, the AI era. And so these two initiatives are completely visionary, and it's going to be transformative for America.
Jensen, in the time that you and I have been on air having this conversation, some news has broken from US Secretary of State Rubio, who has said that the US will begin revoking some Chinese student visas. What I wanted to ask you is that with US government limits on foreign student visas, how does that impact a company like Nvidia? I think about the size, but also composition of your engineering talent here in California and elsewhere in the United States.
I believe the administration still feels very strongly about the incredible importance of immigration. Look, I'm an immigrant. I know many immigrants that came to the United States to build a great life, and many of us have contributed greatly to the technology industry and the United States. I believe that's going to have to continue. Remember, people from all over the world want to come to the United States. This is just such an extraordinary country with such incredible opportunities. We want the brightest to come here. We don't want others to, we don't want everybody to be able to come here, and there should be rules. But nonetheless, for the ones that really can make a contribution, want to make a difference, we want to make it possible for them to come here and bring their great ideas, bring their great intellect, and help us build a great America. And so I think the administration is all in on that, and I don't think anything that they've said changes that.
That is the most successful entrepreneur, well, alongside Elon Musk, of the modern era, Jensen Huang. So now you wonder why the Americans are inundated with applications from Afrikaners. It's not just Afrikaners who want to get into the United States. As Jensen was saying, it remains a magnet for people all over the world. Well, not everybody, though, thank heavens, because here in South Africa, we need the entrepreneurs that we still have, and Elon Musk might have left, and Patrick Soon-Seong has gone as well, and many others. But there are still a generation who are coming through, and in the tailpiece today, I'm going to reflect on one of them, who is an old pal of mine. But before we go there, Roynet, which is in the BizNews portfolios, produced its interim results this morning, released them on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange this morning. As anticipated, not very good. The headline earnings per share were down 20%, operating profit down by about a similar amount. However, the company is looking forward to a better future. The dividend was maintained, the interim dividend, this is a half-year payout, at 90 cents a share. So that's quite a juicy return if you look at a stock that is only trading at 59 Rand, and that's only the halfway payment. And the projection by the company, and this is what shareholders look for, is that the second half will be a heck of a lot better. What is interesting is that the share price on the trading update, which said that these numbers would be pretty poor, was down below 55 Rand a share. It's now almost 60 Rand a share. Well, I don't know if you know the thing on the right-hand side, which is a reflection from Grok of my favorite takeaway food in London, well, even eat-in food. It's from an organization called Pret-a-Manger, and that is your Swedish meatball wrap. Now, the guy on the left is an old pal of mine. His name is Hamza Faruqi, and he and I got to know each other a few decades ago now, I guess, when he was in his early 20s and putting together a very ambitious organization called World Space Africa. World Space was a satellite radio operation, and as the company that I had then was not able, because of its ownership, i.e. me, to get a radio license, it was a very appealing proposition for us. It didn't really work, satellite radio, for a number of reasons, primarily because the receivers were so expensive and just too expensive to get into the mass market, and as a consequence, there was no way that satellite radio could, certainly in our country and in our continent, could compete with free-to-air radio. But Hamza's gone on to other things, bigger and better things, including bringing Pret-a-Manger to South Africa. It has now got its second store announced this morning that will be opening in the zone in Rosebank. And this, Hamza says, is after the first store in Melrose Arch has been very successful. South Africa is the 21st country in the Pret-a-Manger empire, which now has more than 700 Pret stores. They began in London in the mid-80s. But to give you just a taste of proudly South African achievement, Nando's has got 1,186 stores around the world. So still quite a bit bigger. Have a wonderful weekend. Bronwyn will be back again for you on Monday. Until then, cheerio. This BizNews briefing is brought to you by Investec Business Banking. Make the move to private banking service now for your business.